All that stuff is important, but it's just a fraction of what you can do with arrays. So I'm going to assume that despite my pathetic attempt at an explanation of Menslave, that you actually went and read the book and tried to figure it out. And if you're still struggling with, let's just switch to a different screen. So much nicer here. If you're still struggling with finding the second largest element in an array, please ask me to explain it to you again. I'm also prepared to do that, but I want to move on as well. But it may just be that they can do it better than I can, because I feel I failed some of you. Vote for your best lecturer. Now it's moonlight. Oh, can I switch this off? It doesn't bother me much, but well, it's fine. What we need to talk about today is taking arrays to the next dimension, to the next level. Thank you. That's a little joke for people who know what's coming. So, oh, you all know what's coming because you read the textbook. Okay, fine, good. So, sorry about that joke. Next dimension. Finding the max in an array, or calculating the mean, or calculating the median, that's all useful stuff. But why do I want to do that? Well, I have programs that does that. I don't want to show you, but I've got Excel on this laptop, and that's the kind of stuff it does. This morning I put in your marks, because today I have to hand in your early assessment marks. We can chat about that in a sec. But the bottom line is that Excel can do all that stuff for me. So why do I need to know how to do it? Well, somebody had to write Excel. And Excel is not always available. Other programs are not always available. Sometimes you're writing a program and you have to do that. You have to calculate the average or the sum of a lot of numbers or the median, whatever. I would never have just one little array of student marks. You have many marks. Your assessment, your early assessment, so it's just a score. It's a score that the university uses to see that people are still on track. Can I show you the early assessment stuff or not? I think it's on here, but I'm not allowed to show student marks to everyone. So let's just see if I can hide your student numbers. It's syncing, so that's not a joke, even though it's the punchline of a joke. You all know the joke about syncing, about the German Coast Guard guy on his first day, and they tell him how to operate the system, and they say, just sit here, nothing ever happens. And as soon as the older instructor leaves the newbie on his own, there's a call on the radio that says, Mayday, Mayday, we're sinking, we're sinking. And then he says, what are you thinking about? So, okay, right, that's not so funny. Don't patronize me with your laughs. Okay, let's see if I can hide stuff. It'll take long for Eclipse to start us. Well, while it's starting out, I'll tell you that. I'll just stop for a second. I'll tell you that what I did to calculate your early assessment marks is to take your 3 tutorial tests that you've written so far and to add twice the practical test mark. 2 times the practical test mark. Because in the end, that will count about 2 times what a tutorial test counts. So added them all up. Is anything happening? Oh, here we go. See, a little bouncy thing means Excel is loading. Good. Don't panic about this. Your marks are not good. But I may ask you to join a mentor group. Now that we have the early assessment marks, I know who to put in the mentor groups. The mentor groups will consist of 10 students per mentor, and you'll meet for an hour or 2 hours every week. That is your chance to ask questions and to make sure you know the work. If you ask no questions or if you say nothing, the mentor is going to ask you questions to make sure that you're up to date. Okay, finally Excel has woken up a little bit. Let's just see if, am I doing, no, I'm not. Okay, fine. Oh my God, it's going to take forever. I'm going to be here the whole week. Well, this is only a small laptop. It's not meant to do heavy lifting like itself. Like your marks are much big for the spreadsheet. It's really, I mean, some people were off the scale. Some people were off the scale. I had to scale it back. Most of you. So, I want to get you arrays, and this Excel is on. Oh, excellent. Good. Fine. So let's hide people. And they're sorted according to the marks, the early assessment marks, so that I can tell who are the bottom 100 students that I want to put into the mentor groups. We'll organize that next week. Don't worry about that. But most people did very well. So most people have good assessments. And if we look at the bottom, if we can find the bottom, oh, come on, Excel, don't let me down. Here we go. So here are some of the bottom. I always calculate all these marks because average is actually a very bad way of judging what is going on in the class or in any group of numbers. Average is not the best way. I like median better. It tells me that half the class better than some mark or half the class is worse than someone. Yes.
Just pick out the first
practical
test.
Practice.
Yeah, the one that failed. Right.
Practical test, yes. Ignore.
That is still on my Sunburn.
Yes, I saw that last night when I was calculating these marks. They were not used to calculate your what you marks. I thought I'd switch them off, but I clearly didn't. So that'll disappear soon. Nice. Practical marks are the one that failed will disappear soon. So here are the stats for don't want to show the student numbers. Okay, here are the stats. For the class as a whole, the minimum was 0. Oops, sorry about that. Maximum was 100. That's good for the early assessment. Let's move to the practical one. The mean was 53, which means that you know the word 50%? I'm not sure. The median was 50, which sounds worse than the mean, but in this case, the mean will always be a multiple of 25, kind of because you could only score multiples of 25%. There were only 4 questions, and the pass rate is 64. So I'm pretty happy about that. What is the pass rate? It's anyone who got more than a 45. So a 50 or 75 or 100. And for the early assessment as a whole, this is exactly what we would expect. So about 3/4 of the class are doing fine, 75% is passing, and 25% is lagging a little bit. Just to be sure that nothing is being biased, I calculated these marks for the actuarial science students as well, and it's pretty much the same. I know it sounds like a big gap of 3% or 6%, but because of the way the increments of the tests, we can expect these kind of jumps. These are the only kind of jumps that are possible, and this will improve. So I'm still very happy about the test, the early assessment marks, and this will go in the system. If you haven't, there are only 2 people who have a legitimate clash with our practical test. They're writing today, so don't panic. You'll still be, your marks will be updated. But what bothers me more is that there were many students who did not write or scored 0 for the practical test. Maybe they did write it. Well, we'll deal with them. Those guys are not so important. I just want to see if there are high scorers in the early assessment who actually did badly on the test. I thought I saw a couple last night, but maybe I was just too tired. Okay, no. Okay, fine, good. This is fine. Oh, it's fine for me. What I really want to start to talk about is the fact that I've got all these marks, 400 marks, and I want to calculate the average. But I don't only have one set of marks. I have marks for the tat and the tat 2 and tat 3, the 2, 3, and 4, and the first bracket rule. So how many arrays do I need? Well, I need one for tat 2, and one for tat 3, and one for tat 4, bracket 1, and the early assessment. But we're going to add 2 more practical tests, and there's an exam, and there's the project demo, plus there's 3 more, at least 3 more tutorial tests to come. So in the end, I'm going to have many, many arrays. And for the same reason that I don't want 400 separate integer variables to store your marks, I don't really want 12 separate arrays to store different sets of marks. Can't I have an array of arrays? And Java does allow that. I can have a 2-dimensional array, which is exactly like what Excel is, in fact. Excel, you've used Excel, haven't you? Who's never heard of Excel? Have you heard of Excel? Good. Okay. Who's never worked with Excel? This is the point of pride. Okay. 2 people, 3 people, 5 people get big reward. You're very lucky you escaped this calendar. But the rest of us, it is actually quite useful sometimes. It's just never does exactly what I want it to do. So just figure out what course you're taking in Excel is a little exercise in insanity. So this field has a formula, the one here at the top. And yes, well, oh, marks. Okay, right. So Excel really is a 2-dimensional array. It's an array of separate arrays. So if you think of each column as an array of cells, and the rows if you think of each, I'm confused. If you think of each row as an array of cells, each separate row, then all the rows together are a big array of arrays. And in fact, Excel has one more dimension, because not only do you have arrays of arrays to get a 2-dimensional table like this, but there are also separate sheets. So I can switch to different sheets here at the bottom. So they're a separate kind of dimension to the arrows. So in this case, I actually have an array of 3 sheets, and each sheet is a 2-dimensional array of cells. In Excel, of course, I can store loads of stuff in each cell. I can store integers or strings or addresses of other cells and formulas, complicated stuff. In Java, you need to say, I'm going to make an array that stores blah in each box, each slot. So you have to be specific. You can only store one kind of thing, but for nowadays. But in Excel, it's a little more varied. You could even say that Excel has a 4th dimension. We've got the 2-dimensional cells, and then the sheets add one more dimension. And then different files, if you think of them as different arrays, each file, the files are in another dimension. So I'm going to close this up, and I'm going to do this whole spreadsheet. Don't save it. In Java. Let's close this. I just want to close these. Not important. And oh, run. What am I running? Oh yes, finding the maximum. That's from yesterday. This little button makes a new class. I always press it because it's easiest. And today I want to do Excel. So I'm going to recreate that whole spreadsheet and work with 2-dimensional arrays. So let's see. We need a main. Good. We have a main. Now, what am I going to store? Let's store your marks as doubles. Because when I calculate the average, I'm going to get a double answer. So, I can't have it to be an integer. So that tells Java that Yaku wants an array. Don't say how big it is, but an array of doubles called marks. I can talk about mark 0, mark 1, mark 2, and so on. To make a two-dimensional array, an array of arrays, I put another square bracket after the double. So if you read this backwards, what I'm really saying is that these square blocks say, I want an array, and what must I store in each slot of the array? I must store an array of doubles. And if I really wanted to, I can say, marks is now an array of doubles, but I want an array of these kind of marks. So I can add another dimension if I want. In fact, I can add as many as I want. Just for today, I'm just going to stick to 2 dimensions. As before, we can initialize it. So before we said, let's say that these are the marks. Okay, so now it's the time to exercise a little social engineering. And I'll do that by entering only one low mark and lots of high marks. And in that way, I'm subconsciously influencing you to do really well in this course. Before I could do this, I could say these are the marks, very, very good marks. There was one where I scored 10%. You probably was not ill. And then 19, 18, 16, 18. That's a good mark. The Java's complaining because I can't put those values in marks. Marks does not store a list of doubles. It stores a list of doubles. If I remove one of the square brackets, one of these pairs, I can. And Eclipse is happy, but as soon as I add it, Eclipse is unhappy again, because this element here, 0.1, is not what mark is storing. It's a two-dimensional array. So quite naturally, as you'd expect, I can enter a two-dimensional array. There's the first one. Second test, this guy improved. He really studied. This guy is very talented. He's quite still good. That was just a lucky strike. Actually, this is a 60% guy. That was just an unlucky strike. Actually, this is an 80% guy. And this guy is very consistent. And third test, very, very difficult. Everybody scored low marks. System crashed. System crashed. This guy's a hacker. He hacked his own mark. Just add zeros just for effect. That guy's about to be kicked out of the university for hacking the system. Okay, so now Eclipse is happy because I've told it that mark is a two-dimensional table, two-dimensional array, and it has 3 elements. The first is this list, this array. The second is this array. The third is this array. Okay, right. I'm also happy. What can we do with marks? Well, we can do loads of stuff, but I'm going to start off by just printing it. So I'm going to write a for loop. Now, how big is marks? R stands for rows. So how many rows in marks? Well, we can see visually there are 3 rows, and that makes sense. I said marks is equal to open brace, 3 things, I don't know what they are, and close brace. So the number of rows is 3. You can tell that visually. Yes.
Why is it 3 arrows?
Why is it 3 arrows? There are arrows. The 3 what? Why only 3? Well, okay. Okay. Good fun, guys. This is a different course. This is not your course. So I just picked randomly. There were 3 tests and I entered 3 sets of marks. Why are there only 2 blocks? Ah, is that what you were asking originally? Only 2? Or mean 2? Right. Oh, excellent. Quite by accident, I made a mistake that confused you. It gives me the opportunity to explain this exact point. So we all agree. Oh, this is so dangerous because if I start like that, I'm going to trick you. Right. Okay. So you agree that that is correct. You still understand. You're happy with that. And the reasoning here is that I've got an array called weight. It's a one-dimensional array, which means I've got a long list of slots that I can fill with doubles. And I actually tell Java what to put in those slots. 10 kilograms, 90 kilograms, 80 kilograms, 60 kilograms, and 80 kilograms. Those are the weights for the students in the class. No wonder that first guy's doing so poorly. He's just underweight. He's weighing 10 kilos. Probably just a head in a wheelchair. Well, he'll have to have at least a head. Oh, I hope I'm not being rude to people who have bulimia. You can't weigh 10 kilos, can you? No, you'd be dead. Okay, that's fine. So let's say this is a different unit of weight, doesn't matter. We're all happy that I can store those numbers in that array because they're real numbers, it can store doubles. It's a one-dimensional, I can fit them all in. If I want to have different sets of weights at different times, I need either a second array which can store my second set of weights, and a third one perhaps. But I don't want to do this because now the weight arrays are proliferating. They're increasing, they're becoming too many. Hulle is besig om te prolifereer. As jy mooi Afrikaans wil hoor. Okay. So, this is exactly why I have arrays, to get away from having to declare different variables for data that's really repeated. So instead of having 3 arrays of weights, and each array is an array of doubles, I'm going to have one array called weights. And I can't just write that, because now I can only put a double in weights. I want to put 3 sets of doubles, 3 arrays of doubles in weights. So I'm adding my square bracket here to mean that this is 2-dimensional. I mean, you can see that it's 2-dimensional because it's laid out like that in a table form. So the first dimension is which weights are we talking about? And the second dimension is which specific weight in each row are we talking about? So if I do this, and I write about weight 1, 2, what I'm really referring to is weights 1, so that's 0, 1. So I'm talking about this array, and I'm talking about entry 2. So 0, 1, I'm talking about this 0.80. If I change that, if I say weights 1, 2 become 0.56, then it's this entry that I'm changing. No other entries. I mean, that one's above and one's below won't change. Even though they look the same, they're not the same. It's a different value. I know I put 2 sets of square brackets, but that's to indicate 2 dimensions. And I know I have 3 rows, but I could have a 4th row. The last test was way too easy. Everybody scored really well. Okay, that guy got a 0. He was kicked out of university. She, it was a she. Yes. So I've got my 4 sets of marks. Now the 4. If I before had written a 3 down here, because I could see that there are 3 rows, that would have been a mistake. Because they can change. That can change. I mean, your marks are increasing, your sets of marks. Every week you write a new test, and that makes there be more marks. So I have to write something here, and before we could always write this. And we did, on Wednesday at least. And we can still write this. If we write marks.length, Java will say, well, marks is an array. It's an array of double arrays. And I can count how many arrays there are. At the moment in marks, there is 1, 2, 3, 4 arrays. So marks.length exactly counts the number, the first dimension, the number of rows in my table, in my 2-dimensional array. So I can still write this. This is fine, hunky-dory. Now, I need to print row R of marks. I don't need to worry about the other rows. I only need to print that 1 row. This is really distracting me. Can't I switch it off? Oh. Did it change? Oh, maybe. Doesn't want to change. Okay, fine. Blue screen is good. Now I need to print row R of marks. I don't need to worry about other rows. All I have to think about is row R of marks. So all I need to do is to really print marks R. Marks is an array of doubles. So marks R is 1 array of doubles. I know how to print an array. I can walk over the array, and I can print each of the entries 1 by 1. So I'm going to say for int I is 0, I is less than. How many entries in this array? This array being marks R. It's marks R. That's the array I want to print. The row I'm at. Dot length. Because that's how we find the size of an array, the number of slots. I plus plus. And all I'm going to do in here is to say control space print marks. So this is the row. I can't just print that because it's a whole array, but I can print the ith slot of that array. If you've programmed before, this is probably old news, but if you haven't, this is like shockingly new, and you need a little time to get used to it. Students usually fall down a little bit at this point, but it's not that difficult. What helps me, because I also struggle with this kind of stuff, is to visualize things. In my mind, when I make a 2-dimensional array, I actually think of that table. And I know that when I say marks R, I'm actually looking at row number R. And when I say marks RI, it's the ith entry in that row. Some people may see this in a different way. Maybe they have a Neo-like ability to see the whole world in zeros and ones, and it's all green and black. And they probably have some kind of persecution complex as well, because it's all crazy, that guy is all crazy. But I can't do it like that. I really picture it in my mind. So I visualize the physical table when I talk about arrows. In fact, I do this in my mind, not in my mind, in my office. So I actually do that. Okay, this is supposed to print it. I just changed that print line to a print. And at the end of each row, I'm going to do just a print line so that we get to the next row. And that should print everything. Let's hope it works. Run. Oh, beautiful. So it's printed all the marks I entered, not as neatly as I wanted. And it's not overloaded, it's probably somewhere in the book. I'm going to show you now how to print this more neatly. And that is to say, don't print, but print a formatted string. So this is complex stuff. It's just a few formulas you need to learn. But to print real numbers, you type in a string percent dot 3 decimal marks F and a space and then a comma. The printf is another function in the system lookout library. It takes a string, which is what you want to print. There can be placeholders in that string. In this case, there is one placeholder that says, they always start with percentage, that says print a floating point number with .3, so 3 decimal places, and then you print a space after that. And then printf takes more arguments. It takes a floating point number because you said you wanted to print one, and you provided a placeholder for it. So now you need to supply that floating point number. So this is just a little trick for printing numbers more neatly. I know I had 2 decimal points, but just to illustrate 3 decimal points, let's see if this works. Better work. Pay good money for this thing. Oh yeah, it works beautifully. Okay. Yes. Yes.
So if you were to say marks on length, you get 4, right?
If you were to say, that's a subjunctive, marks or 4, you would get. Oh, you said you get. You would get this.
If you were to say marks on length,
Okay, subjunctive, yes.
you would get
You would get 4.
correct. Yeah. If you were to say marks at 0 on length, then you would get 5. Am I correct? How do you find the length of multiple rows?
So marks is a 2-dimensional array, rows and columns, but they don't need to be the same size. So let's immediately break this and say that in this last exam, because the student was kicked out, there is no mark. The student was kicked out for hacking. But 99% was a big.
Sorry, if we were to say double marks equals new double and then 2 numbers in brackets, then they would all be the same size, right?
Double marks.
Yeah.
Double brackets marks.
Double open square bracket, close square bracket, open square bracket, close
Yeah, that's what I said.
No, seriously.
Yes.
Well, if we were to say double marks equals new double and then 2 numbers in brackets, then am I
Yes.
correct in saying
We'll get to that. We'll get to that in a second. But
then every row would be the same length? Right?
yes, absolutely.
Okay, so how do I find the length of the row?
Absolutely. So, if we were to say marks x equals, and as before, we can say Java, I want a double array with nonsense in it. I want there to be 5 rows and 400 marks in each row. Those are your marks. If I were to say that, I would get a perfectly rectangular table with 5 rows and 400 columns in each row. And of course, in this case, you don't need to find them, and you've said what it is. I mean, it's type it in. But if you did want to find it, you can say the following: marks.length, and that gives you the number of rows, the first I mentioned. And if you have this particular row, like the very first row, so let me write up here. If I say marks x.length, that's the size, the number of rows, and that's 500. That would really confuse you if I just said 500, clearly, obviously. No, it's like 5. It's not 500, it's 5. Now, if I take any row, so row 0, are you still with me? If I were to tell you the answer, which is still yes. Okay, good. Yes, good. So if I take the 0th row and I ask what is its length, I would get 400. If I take the first row and I ask what is its length, it's 400. Okay, and so on until the last row. Number 4. They're all size 400. I told Java to make an array with 5 entries, and each entry is a double array of corresponding. Yes.
So then as a follow-up question, is it possible to make an array with rows of variable length without having to explicitly define all the values and declaration?
Yes.
Wow.
Too complicated. I'll tell you later. Okay? Explain how. I'll explain. You can understand it, but I'll tell you in a sec. Where a sec is for 5 days. Right. Okay. So here I have a different array, and I'm going to do the same thing. Actually, I'm doing the same thing in this for loop. The very first for loop asks, what is mark.length? And I've given the array explicitly, it has 4 rows. So marks.length will definitely be 4. Oh, these are good exam questions. Marks 0, the 0th row, has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The 1st row, or first row, as you people say, has 5 doubles in it. The 2nd row has 5, but the 3rd row has only 4. Because of that one student that I left off his mark, so that last row of the table, as I gave it explicitly, only has 4 entries, only has 4 doubles. And when I print this, as I'm about to do by pressing a button, good, everything's still fine. Where's my save button? Run button. Java respects my wishes, and it only prints 4 doubles in this last row. You're looking very sad. Have I made you sad? Yes. Okay. If this upsets you, just tell me. I'll do something else. I can do like. Okay. It's clear, yes? Is it clear? Marianne? I just have a talent. I have a talent for these things. People tell me that all the time. I just look at people and tell their names. Like Sean. Sean! Yes, he's just in denial. Okay, fine. So I can print I can have 2-dimensional arrays, and if I do what Jonathan suggested, I can declare them to be of a certain size, but then they contain nonsense and I have to fill them in. That is not an issue. I can fill in arrays. In fact, I'll fill in one now. Now, this is a bit of an issue because once I've given an array a size, I can't change it. Once I've made bars with those values, I can't add a row, I can't add a column, I can't take away. Its size stays fixed. There is no earthly way to resize an array in Java. There are special kind of tricks, but essentially you make a new array, copy everything over, that's not resizable. In the same way, if I say this, I have marks x, which is an array with 5 rows and 400 columns of doubles, and I cannot change that. I cannot ever add or subtract from that. So if I now want to illustrate to you how to calculate the average for all of these, guys, is there an issue? Is there a problem? No problem. Okay, I thought maybe it's a small fire or a cobra that's escaped from the student's pocket. Cobras are really dangerous. I know from experience. Okay. Right. Once I've made the size, I cannot change it, but I want to show you in 5 minutes how you calculate the average. So I need somewhere to store the averages. What are my options? Well, today my options are either to make a new array, which is fine. I don't mind doing that. Double. It's only 1-dimensional because for each student, I have 1 average. Actually, maybe I want the averages of the tests as well. Never mind. I don't mind doing this today. It would have been nicer if I had a kind of way of adding an array here, doing that. Well, I don't, for now at least. Now, I want to calculate the average for each student. So, how does it work? Well, where is this first student's marks? It's in this first column. So now things get a little tricky because Now, instead of going row by row, I want to go column by column. How many columns are there? Well, maximum 5, but in the very last row, there's only 4 columns. So do I go 0 to 4 or 0 to 5? And how do I find the 5 or the 4 or the 7? Who knows what else is in the different rows? That's very tricky to find as well. And we can talk about that on next week, Wednesday, when we're back in our normal rate cell. But I'm going to avoid this question for today, and I'm just going to say there are 4 students. So I'm going to say here 4 in C for column, C less than 4, C++. Right, so I'm going to work with my 4 students because determining exactly how many there are is a little tricky. And for each student, I want to take all these marks that I have. So for every row, I want to take the students' marks. So I'm going to go over the rows, and I'm going to use the same kind of for loop that I used here. So I'm going to say 4 int r is 0, r less than marks.length, because that's how many rows there are, how many marks I have for each student. Okay. So working student by student, column by column, and for each student, I'm working row by row, so mark by mark for that student. So at the moment, I'm dealing with marks R, because it's the rth row of my table, and the C column. Even though the C for loop is on the outside, and the R for loop is on the inside, marks, I always have to tell it the row number first, and then the column number. Just because I switch the for loops around doesn't mean the table is magically turned around also. For Java, marks is an array of double arrays. How many arrays are there? 4. Those are the marks. Each row is a set of marks. And each row, each set of marks is 1 double per student. So always I'm going to do this. Always going to write the rows first and then the columns. Now, what do I do with the set of marks? Well, add it to the student's total. Add it to, I need to accumulate, I need to keep track of how many marks does a student have in total for the course. So I have to add it to his total. But I haven't defined total, so I'll need to define it first. I'm just going to put it here. Let's say total is a double. We'll talk about where to put it next week. It is important. Total is a double, and for each of these marks, I add that mark to the total. So now I've got his total marks, and at the end, I know his or her average is total divided by, how many marks do I have? Well, how many rows are there? So many rows. So that's the average. Now Java's complaining because on the right-hand side of this assignment, I've got total, which is a double, divided by marks.length, which is an integer. How many rows there are? Double divided by integer gives me a double, so it's the average. But I'm trying to put that in average. And I've declared average, I'll be with you in 4 seconds. Average I've declared as a double array. So I can't put a double in a double array. I need to say which slot. And I'm going to put it in the slot for student C. Yes? Oh, did I write that? I hate writing that. We have talked about it in the class where we talked about post increment. Yes? Did we? I hope so. But it's just an abbreviation for that. But I hate writing it. I always try to write this. You should. Why are you looking at that? You can look here. It's closer and it's the same. Oh my God, you haven't noticed. This distribution is it's the magic. I don't know how it works, like a TV or something. Did you know TVs all show the same show at the same? Well, not these days, of course. Now live. I don't joke breaks down because people have PVR. Yes. Total's double. That's fine. This assignment is fine. Java's complaining about something else. And it's complaining about the fact The average is an array. I've declared it. I'll show you. Oh, I've got only 5 seconds. Damn. Okay, let's just move it down so you can see it. Average is an array. That's fine. That's hunky-dory. But I haven't told it how big it must be. All Java knows it's an array. Before I use it, I must tell it how big it must be, either by explicitly showing its content with double braces, or by saying, as we did before, that this is new double sum size. How big must it be? How many students do I have? Well, marks.length. Ooh, complicated. Okay, now I've lost a lot of people. I can see people in the back. That lady has fainted. She looks like she's looking at a laptop. Need to revive her. Okay. So now Java's happy. I've told it how big average must be to array doubles. I've calculated doubles by going to each student, each column, take each, all of these marks, add them together, and divide by the number of marks. Okay. I'm going to stop because you need to get to your next sleeping session. And I'll see you on Wednesday. I'll see you on Wednesday in the right hall. Okay. Thanks, guys.